Welcome, everyone. Today, we are going to unlock your inner innovator. We're exploring how to transform Claude from a simple chatbot into a powerful creative collaborator using proven brainstorming frameworks like Scamper, the Yes, and Method, and constraint-based thinking. Let's get started and push the boundaries of what AI can help you create. Let's start by shattering a major myth. Creativity isn't just waiting for lightning to strike. It's about solving problems in new ways. When we bring Claude into the creative process, we have to understand what it actually does. Claude doesn't have genuine artistic intuition or lived human experience. What it does have is unparalleled pattern recognition. If you just ask Claude, "Give me creative ideas," it will default to the most statistically average and therefore boring responses. To get breakthrough innovation, we must use structured frameworks. We have to shift our mindset from using Claude as an oracle to using it as a systematic brainstorming partner. In our deep dive, we embrace the creative infinity loop. You bring the human empathy and real-world judgment, and Claude brings the rapid, combinatorial processing. Together, you explore the possibility space far faster than you ever could alone. Looking at this flowchart, you can see the true engine of AI-assisted innovation. On the left, human creativity and Claude AI feed into the central creative infinity loop. You provide the context, empathy, and artistic constraints, while Claude provides rapid pattern recognition. This loop drives two powerful outputs: systematic exploration and combinatorial possibilities. By continuously bouncing ideas back and forth through this loop, we ultimately arrive at our goal on the far right: breakthrough ideas. Our first major tool is the Scamper framework. Scamper is a legendary innovation technique that stands for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse. Why is this so effective with Claude? Because LLMs are designed to predict the most likely next word. We want the unlikely words. Scamper forces Claude to mutate your idea in 7 completely different, lateral directions. How do you do it? You explicitly prompt Claude, "Run my coffee shop concept through the Scamper framework. Give me one radical idea for each letter." For instance, eliminate might prompt Claude to suggest a coffee shop with no human baristas or no seating. Put to another use might suggest a coffee shop that doubles as a podcast studio at night. By forcing these distinct semantic vectors, you shatter the AI's tendency to give you safe, generic business advice. This diagram visually maps out the Scamper framework. From your central concept in the middle, we branch out into 7 distinct creative constraints. When you prompt Claude using this structure, you are effectively asking the AI to walk down 7 completely different cognitive pathways simultaneously. Instead of one slightly polished version of your original idea, you get 7 radical mutations to evaluate and combine. Next, we draw inspiration from improv comedy with the yes and forced connection methods. Human nature is to immediately look for flaws in a new idea. But early-stage creativity needs a judgment-free zone to expand. The yes and method does exactly this. You tell Claude, "Let's play yes and I'll propose an idea, and you must accept it and expand upon it." You say, "I want to organize things." Claude says, "Yes, and you could organize digital lives." You say, "Yes, and I could offer quarterly tune-ups." Suddenly, you have a business model. The forced connection method is equally powerful. You prompt Claude to smash 2 totally unrelated concepts together. For example, connect pizza delivery with library services. Claude might suggest a mobile library that delivers books in 30 minutes or less. Because Claude has read the internet, it can draw brilliant structural parallels between entirely different industries. This sequence diagram illustrates a yes and session in action. Notice the rapid, ping-ping iteration between the human and Claude. The human starts with a basic, somewhat boring idea. Claude accepts it and immediately expands it. The human accepts Claude's expansion and adds a monetization layer. Claude accepts that and adds branding. In just 4 turns, you've gone from a vague thought to a highly specific, actionable business concept. One of the most counterintuitive secrets to creativity is that total freedom is actually paralyzing. If you want incredible ideas, you need constraint-based thinking. You must apply severe, seemingly impossible limitations. We call this the impossible constraint challenge. Why does this work? Because constraints breed creativity. If you tell Claude to design a marketing campaign with $1 million, you'll get standard billboard and ad spend advice. But if you prompt, "Design a marketing campaign to reach 10,000 people with exactly $0 and no internet access," Claude is forced to completely shatter its standard assumptions. It will have to look at grassroots community networking, barter systems, or physical stunt marketing. You can also use opposite thinking. Prompt Claude. What is the exact opposite of how people usually approach this? Generate ideas based on doing the reverse. The ideas might seem crazy at first, but they often hide the seed of a massive breakthrough. Here we see the architecture of constraint-based thinking. We start with a standard problem, but instead of solving it normally, we pass it through the yellow node, apply severe constraints. Depending on the path, we choose zero budget, the opposite approach, or a 24-hour time limit. Claude is forced down highly unconventional pathways. All of these constrained pathways converge at the bottom to produce true breakthrough innovation. To get these frameworks to actually work, we must structure our prompts correctly. The anatomy of a creative prompt is different from a coding or research prompt. You need 4 elements: persona, context, the framework, and output format. First, roleplay is essential. Start your prompt with, act as an eccentric creative director, or act as a skeptical minimalist designer. This instantly shifts Claude's vocabulary and tone away from clinical AI speak. Then, explicitly name the framework. Don't just ask for ideas, command Claude, apply the Scamper framework to this challenge. Finally, a deep dive pro tip is the cascading constraint system. You ask Claude to explain a complex creative idea in 500 words. Then, prompt it to reduce it to 100 words. Then, ask it to reduce it to a single metaphor. The concept that survives that aggressive reduction cascade is the absolute, unshakable core of your creative insight. This diagram breaks down the ultimate prompt payload for creative tasks. Notice how the 3 key inputs on the left: your designated role or persona, your specific context and goal, and your chosen framework like Scamper all combine into the creative engine. When this highly structured payload is delivered to Claude, it guarantees that the AI generates highly original output, completely bypassing its generic default responses. Brainstorming is fun, but we need our ideas to be useful in the real world. This is where design thinking integration comes in. Design thinking has 5 stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. It roots your creativity in actual human needs. You start by prompting Claude to empathize. Help me understand busy parents trying to exercise. What are their actual, hidden barriers? Claude will highlight things you missed, like mental fatigue or guilt, rather than just lack of time. Next, you define the problem by asking Claude to generate specific, how might we? Questions. Once you've ideated using Scamper, you reach the test phase. A brilliant deep dive technique is to use Claude to simulate your target audience. You feed your new idea back to Claude and say, adopt the persona of an exhausted parent. Critique this prototype mercilessly. Claude will pressure test your creative idea before you spend a dime building it. This state diagram maps the integration of Claude into the design thinking lifecycle. We begin at empathize to understand the audience, moving into define to ask, how might we questions. This leads directly to our ideate state, where we apply our Scamper and yes and frameworks. We then draft a minimum viable concept in the prototype state, and finally pass it to the test state for an AI persona critique before we achieve our validated idea. Let's put all of this together in a real-world use case, the side hustle reframing. Imagine a professional who is incredible at Microsoft Excel. They want to start a side business, but they think, Excel is too boring. I'm not creative enough. Step 1. We use Claude for problem reframing. We ask Claude to reframe the skill. Claude points out that Excel isn't about spreadsheets, it's about finding order in chaos. Step 2. We apply the Scamper framework. We look at the P put to another use. Claude suggests taking enterprise-grade Excel tracking and applying it to personal life management for neurodivergent individuals. Step 3. We use the yes and method to build out the business model. Yes, and you could make them colorful templates. Yes, and you could sell a monthly subscription. By applying these exact frameworks, we took a boring corporate skill and creatively mutated it into a highly unique, incredibly valuable digital product business. Follow the transformation in this flowchart. We start on the left with a boring skill like Excel. We pass it through phase 1 to reframe the context. Then it hits phase 2, where we apply a specific Scamper constraint, put to other use. Finally, it goes through phase 3, 4, yes, and expansion to build the feature set. It emerges on the right as a highly creative, viable niche business. The frameworks did the heavy lifting. As we conclude our training on creative brainstorming, we must establish some critical best practices. First, avoid the AI dependency trap. Claude is a combinatorial engine. It provides amazing pattern-based suggestions. But you must provide the emotion, the cultural awareness, and the final artistic judgment. Claude can't feel. Second, beware the complexity trap. If an idea generated by Scamper feels forced or overly complicated, dial it back. Simplify your constraints. Third, always validate in reality. An idea that sounds brilliant to an AI must still survive contact with real humans in the real world. Finally, remember that AI lacks genuine cultural sensitivity. When we ask Claude for radical, out-of-the-box ideas, always review those outputs through your own human lens of empathy and appropriateness. I invite learners to like, subscribe, and visit quicktechie.com for premium certification prep, including Q&A banks, full ebooks, audiobooks, full-length training, and interview guides. Thank you for innovating with me today. Our final diagram is your safety net, the human evaluation gate. All AI-generated concepts must pass through this yellow gate. If an idea lacks empathy or is too complex, it gets discarded or refined. If it is culturally safe and practical, it moves to real-world human testing. Only after surviving real human feedback does an idea become a final implemented innovation. You are always the ultimate creative director.